If you carry your daddy's old shotgun down to a gun show table this month and sell it, you'll hand over that gun before you ever find out what it was really worth. And it won't be the buyer who cheated you. It'll be the one stamp on the barrel you never bothered to read. But today, I'll show you 11 shotguns built before 1988 that folks sell for pocket change and how to tell if the one in your safe is one of them before it leaves your hands. And guess what? Number one isn't the fanciest gun on this list, and it isn't the rarest, but it's the one most likely to be sitting in your father's closet right now, and the one people sell off cheapest of all. Let's start with number 11. Number 11 is the Remington Model 31. Now, most folks have never even heard of it, and that's half the reason it's here. Remington brought this pump out in 1931, and they built it for one reason: to knock the Winchester Model 12 off its throne. It was Remington's first side-ejecting hammerless pump, and they ran it until about 1949, somewhere north of 190,000 of them. Then they dropped it and replaced it with the 870 because the 870 was cheaper to build. That's the record, not my opinion. Here's what most owners don't know. The Model 31 has one of the smoothest actions ever put on a pump gun. The old-timers called it ball bearing smooth, and if you've ever run one, you know exactly what they meant. It looks like a plain working gun, and that's exactly why people sell it cheap. Now let me be straight with you, because most channels won't. The common 12-gauge field grade is not a fortune. You'll see those change hands for a few $100s, and that's about right. Here's where it stands against the filter, and my filter today never moves. Does this gun have something the factory quit making that you can't get anymore? A gauge or a grade or a cutoff year? Is there a mark on it you can go check tonight? And is the price already climbing so holding beats selling? 3 yeses and you do not sell it. The plain 12 gauge only gets you 1.5 of those. But the 20 gauge Model 31 and the higher grades Remington offered, those are a different animal. Clean, those run well up into 4 figures. So before you let one go, you read the gauge stamp and you look at the grade markings. Those are public sale numbers, by the way. What these actually bring at auction and on the used racks, not a price guide, not an appraisal. That smooth action was the selling point on a pump. But the gun at number 10 never needed a slick action to be worth money because its value was built into the side plates by hand. Number 10 is the L.C. Smith side-by-side. Here's the thing you have to understand about this one. Almost every American double gun ever built is a box lock. The L.C. Smith is a side lock. The lockwork rides on plates on the sides of the frame, the way the fine English guns were built. That's what makes it different, and that's what makes collectors chase it. These came out of the Hunter Arms Company up in Fulton, New York, going back to the late 1880s. Then, Marlin bought the whole operation in 1945 and built them until about 1950, 1951. So there's your year line, the earlier Hunter Arms guns versus the later Marlin-era guns. That matters to the money. Here's what most owners don't know. The L.C. Smith came in grades, a whole ladder of them. Field at the bottom, then up through Ideal, Specialty, Crown, Monogram, and the Premier and Deluxe guns at the top that most people will never lay eyes on. A tired field grade gun in rough shape is a few $100s, and I won't tell you different. But the high grades, the small gauges, the clean Specialty and Crown guns run into many thousands, and the top of that ladder in honest condition goes well past that. Now here's the honest catch, and it's a real one. Grading these correctly takes an expert eye. The difference between one grade and the next can be thousands of dollars, and it comes down to engraving coverage and wood and details a regular fella isn't going to call right from across the room. So the mark you check tonight is the maker's name and the grade name on the frame. But the value you get confirmed by somebody who knows these guns cold. That's not me being cautious. That's me keeping you from selling a Crown for field money. That gun's worth was in the craftsmanship, the fancy work. But number 9 proves you don't need fancy at all. You need the right feature and the right era. Number 9 is the Ithaca Model 37 Featherlight. You've seen this one, even if you didn't know the name. It's the pump with no ejection port on the side. It loads and ejects out the bottom. That bottom eject design is the whole tell, and it's why left-handed shooters and a lot of police departments loved it. Nothing flying out the side past your face, either hand runs it the same. Ithaca brought it out in 1937. That's where the 37 comes from, built on patents from John Browning and John Peterson. It ran a long, long time. But the company went through hard financial times and changed hands more than once over the decades, and that's the key to the money here. The earlier guns, built when Ithaca was still Ithaca of Ithaca, New York, are the ones collectors want. Here's what most owners don't know. The common later 12-gauge field gun is affordable, low to mid-hundreds, honestly. But the early examples, the high-condition guns, and the sub-gauge guns in 20 and 410 climb into and past 4 figures. Against the filter, you've got a discontinued era design, a feature you can identify blindfolded, and rising interest in the early and small-bore guns. Where it comes up a little short of the top is that the plain 12-gauge is just plain common. There are a lot of them. So the check here is two-part. Is it a bottom ejector? Yes, you already know by looking. And what era is it? That you get from the serial number, and I'll be straight, dating these across Ithaca's messy corporate history is approximate, not gospel. Nobody at that gun counter is going to sit you down and teach you to read a gun before you sell it. That's the whole reason this channel exists. If that's what you're here for, hit subscribe because I do this every single week. That gun hit its value in one feature and one era. But number 8 is the one that fools the most people because the same famous name splits into a gun worth nothing special and a gun worth real money. And one stamp tells you which you're holding. Number 8 is the Remington 870 Wingmaster. Now stay with me because this is where I lose some of you. Ray, the 870 is the most common shotgun on the planet. My cousin's got 3. I hear you. Remington built more than 11 million of them across all the variations. It is the best-selling shotgun in history, and that is the record, not my opinion. A used 12-gauge 870 is one of the cheapest working shotguns you can buy in America. All true. And all of that is exactly the trap. Here's what most owners don't know. The value was never in the common 12-gauge. It's in 2 things. First, the Wingmaster itself. That's the original, higher finish line, the polished bluing and the good wood, as opposed to the later Express, which was the budget line that came along in the late 1980s. Second, and this is the big one, it's in the small bores. The 410 and the 28-gauge 870s, built on properly scaled small frames, were made in far smaller numbers than the 12. So here's where it nearly slips against the filter, and here's the stamp that saves it. A plain 12-gauge Express fails my filter. It's plentiful, it's cheap, the price is flat. But a clean vintage small-bore Wingmaster clears it clean. A mint Wingmaster in 410 runs up into the high hundreds, and it is genuinely hard to find. The 28-gauge guns sit right in that neighborhood or above. Now, that 410 figure is a commonly cited street and collector number, not a printed guide price. So I'll call it what it is, an observed range, not a promise. The check tonight is 2 stamps. Does the barrel say Wingmaster or Express? And what's the gauge? Because a 28 or a 410 changes the whole conversation. Same model name, 2 completely different verdicts. From here up, we're out of the guns worth a couple $100 you'd feel a little bad about later. Everything from here on can be worth more than the truck you drove to the show. And number 7 turns on a different kind of stamp. Not the gauge this time, but the country. Number 7 is the Browning Auto 5, the Belgian humpback. If you know it on sight. That squared off back of the receiver, humped up behind the barrel like nothing else ever made. That's John Browning's long recoil autoloader, patented back in 1900, the first successful semi-automatic shotgun there ever was. Browning himself is said to have counted it among his favorite designs he ever drew up, and the man drew up a few. Here's the divide that makes the money. For decades, these were built by Fabrique Nationale in Liège, Belgium, the Belgian guns. Then, in the mid-1970s, production shifted over to Japan, to Morocco. Both are good guns, but the Belgian-made guns are the ones collectors chase, and that's your yearline. Here's what most owners don't know. The plain Belgian 12-gauge is mid-hundreds, nothing wild. But the Sweet 16, that's the 16-gauge, and it's got a following all its own. Along with the clean, early Belgian guns and the high-condition examples, those climb well into 4 figures. Against the filter, it passes clean. Discontinued Belgian production, a mark you check tonight, and steady, proven demand. And that mark could not be simpler. You look for the country of origin. Belgian and FN Liège markings versus Made in Japan. That one stamp is the difference. If it's a 16, you check for the Sweet 16 marking while you're at it. That was Browning's first great autoloader, and the country stamp told the tale. Number 6 is Browning's exposed hammer pump legend, and it comes with the hardest warning in this whole video, because it's the one gun here that gets faked for thousands of dollars. Number 6 is the Winchester Model 1897. This is the old hammer gun, the one with the hammer standing right out back where your thumb can reach it. John Browning designed it. Winchester brought it out in 1897 as an evolution of the earlier 1893, and they built more than 1 million of them clear into the late 1950s. The takedown and field guns are common and they're affordable, low to mid-hundreds for a standard gun in honest shape. But here's what most owners don't know. The 1897's legend is the trench gun, the military version from World War I, with the heat shield over the barrel and the bayonet lug, the one that could slam fire and empty itself as fast as you worked the slide. In close quarters, it was a devastating thing, and the genuine military guns run into many thousands of dollars today. Now, let me be straight with you, because this is the one that can cost you the most. The trench and riot guns are faked, widely. People take a common field 1897 and dress it up with a reproduction heat shield and fake military markings and try to pass it as the real thing. A real one is worth many thousands. A dressed up fake is worth a fraction of that. So here is where it stands against the filter, and the answer has 2 parts. Yes, a genuine military 1897 is a small fortune. And no, you do not believe it's genuine until a recognized expert authenticates it. The markings and the flaming bomb ordnance proofs are exactly what the fakers copy. Do not trust the stamps on this one. Trust an authenticator. That warning cuts both ways, and this is why the channel's here. If this video just kept you from paying trench gun money for a dressed up field gun, or from selling a real one for a few $100 because you didn't know, then subscribe, because that's the kind of thing nobody at the counter is going to stop and tell you. And keep number 1 in the back of your mind while we climb, because it's a pump most every American family has owned at one time or another, and one single stamp separates a worthless one from a valuable one. We'll get there. The 1897 needed an expert to confirm its worth. But number 5 is worth real money in every grade it comes in, because Winchester built it around one small bore and did it better than anybody. Number 5 is the Winchester Model 42. Here's a gun that was never anything but special, and folks still let it go too cheap. Winchester brought the Model 42 out in 1933 and built it until 1963, about 160,000 of them over that run. And here's what makes it different from almost everything else on this list. It's a pump built from the ground up around the 410 bore. Not a big frame necked down to take a little shell, a true small frame gun, scaled right, sized right, built for the 410 and nothing else. That's why it feels like a wand in your hands, and that's why collectors love it. Here's what most owners don't know. Even the standard grade Model 42 in honest condition is already a 4-figure gun. That's the floor, not the ceiling. The Model 42 came in grades too: Skeet, Deluxe, and the scarce high grades above them. And those run into the many thousands and keep going. There's no cheap version of this gun the way there's a cheap 870. The plain one is already worth real money. Against the filter, it's a strong pass. Discontinued in '63, purpose-built in a bore you can't get in a new gun like this anymore, grade-driven scarcity, and a rising market underneath all of it. It sits at number 5 and not higher only because the guns above it are the ones people underrate the worst. And the Model 42, most folks at least suspect, is worth something. The mark you check tonight, it'll say Model 42, it'll be a 410, and then you look hard at the grade markings and whether the finish and the barrel are original. Serial number tells you the year. And these values I'm giving you, public sale observations, what real guns bring, not a guarantee on your gun. That was the little Winchester that was always worth money. Number 4 steps up into the aristocracy of American gun making, the most famous name in double guns this country ever produced. Number 4 is the Parker Brothers Double. If there's one name that means fine American shotgun, it's Parker, the old reliable. Made in Meriden, Connecticut from back in the 1860s until Remington bought the line in 1934 and built Parkers on until about 1942. Somewhere around 240,000 Parker guns were made across that whole span. That's the record. Here's what most owners don't know. Parker built to a ladder of grades, the field grade Trojan and VH down at the working man's end, climbing all the way up to the legendary A1 Special at the top. And the gauge is everything. A 28 gauge or 410 Parker in a high grade is one of the most valuable American shotguns that exists, period. Let me tier this honestly because this is where numbers get away from people. A tired field grade Trojan is a low 4-figure gun. Yes, even the entry Parker is already 4 figures. Mid-grades run many thousands, and the high grades in small gauges reach into 5 and even 6 figures, with the very best A1 specials in small bore having brought 6-figure sums at auction. Now hear me, those top numbers are exceptional guns, the best of the best on the best day. That is not your average Parker in the closet. I'm not going to let you walk away thinking every Parker is a 6-figure gun, because that's how people get hurt. Your yearline is Parker Brothers of Meriden versus the later Remington-made guns, and both are collectible. The check tonight is the Parker Brothers name, the grade marking, and the gauge. 28 or 410 is the one that makes your heart beat. And here's the good news. The Parker collectors keep real records, and you can get a gun's original configuration confirmed. Do that before you ever sell. That's 4 of these covered now, and if you're still here, you already know this channel isn't trying to sell you a thing, just the truth about what's in your safe. Number 3 is another double, but this one most folks flat underrate because it never got as famous as the Parker and it's built every bit as strong. Number 3 is the Winchester Model 21. This was Winchester's answer to the finest doubles in the world. They brought it out in 1930 and they built it to a standard of strength that became the stuff of legend. Winchester was so sure of it, they'd guarantee it against loads that would loosen up lesser guns. Standard production ran into the late 1950s, and after that, the Model 21 became a custom shop gun only. Custom, pigeon, and Grand American grades made to order. Here's what most owners don't know. They only built somewhere around 30,000 of these in the standard run. 30,000 against nearly 2 million of the gun I've got coming at number 1. This was a low production premium gun from the day it was born. Even a standard Model 21 runs into the mid to high 4 figures. The custom, pigeon, and Grand American guns and the small bore examples climb well into 5 figures and keep right on going. Against the filter, it clears hard. Low production, a discontinued standard run, checkable grade and gauge markings, and demand that has never softened. It's at 3 and not 1, only because the 2 ahead of it are underrated even worse. And the Model 21's name already commands respect among people who know. The mark tonight, Model 21 on the frame, the grade designation, the gauge stamp. And Winchester factory letters can be pulled to document exactly how your gun left the factory. On a gun in this class, that letter is worth getting. Nobody behind a counter is going to tell you a piece of paper from the factory can add real money to your gun. I just did. That's worth a subscribe. That's Winchester's finest side by side. Number 2 is Browning's finest, and it was the last thing the greatest gun designer who ever lived ever drew. Number 2 is the Browning Superposed. John Browning designed this over and under at the very end of his life. He was working on it when he died in 1926, and it fell to others to finish. FN in Liège, Belgium, put it into production around 1931. For decades afterward, this was the over and under that defined the American market. When a man said he shot an over and under, more often than not, this is what he meant. Here's what most owners don't know. The Superposed came in a rising ladder of grades. Grade 1 at the bottom, then up through Pigeon, Diana, and Midas, with engraving and gold work that turns a shotgun into something you'd put behind glass. A standard Grade 1 Belgian gun is a 4-figure gun, but the higher grades and the small bore guns, the 28 and the 410, run well into 5 figures. Against the filter, it clears clean. Browning's last design, genuine Belgian pedigree, checkable markings, and a market that pays hard for grade and for small bore. It's at number 2 because it's got everything: the pedigree story and the fact that people badly underrate the higher grades sitting in their safes. Your mark tonight is the Belgian FN Liège markings, the grade name, and the gauge. And once more, those 5-figure numbers are the higher grades and the small bores, not the base Grade 1. I'll keep telling you that because I'd rather you be pleasantly surprised than sell short. Now, we're here. And I told you at the very top that number 1 wouldn't be the fanciest gun on this list or the rarest. The Parker in 6 figures is fancier, the small bore Superposed is rarer. I told you it'd be the one most likely sitting in your father's closet and the one folks sell off cheapest of all. Here's the last piece before I say it. Its whole value hangs on one famous year and one little gauge stamp. Everything but the name you've now got. Number 1 is the Winchester Model 12. They called it the perfect repeater. Winchester brought it out in 1912. T.C. Johnson did the design, and it became the gun every other pump got measured against for 50 years. They built close to 2 million of them before standard production ended in 1964, and that year, 1964, is the single most famous cutoff in American shotgun collecting. That's when Winchester cut costs across the board, and the Pre-64 guns are the ones people want. Here's what most owners don't know, and it's the whole ball game. A common Pre-64 12-gauge Model 12 is cheap, low hundreds, and that is exactly why they get sold for nothing. A fella looks at Grandpa's worn old pump, sees a plain 12-gauge, and takes the first $100 bill somebody waves at him. But the 28-gauge Model 12, the pigeon-grade guns, the factory-engraved guns, the high-condition Pre-64 examples, those run into the many thousands, and the best go far beyond. Same model name, same old pump, a world of difference, and it comes down to the gauge stamp and the grade. Let me say this plainly because somebody needs to hear it. If your uncle sold his daddy's 28-gauge Model 12 for $100, he wasn't a fool. Nobody ever told him the gauge was the whole story. He got handed the same tired idea everybody gets handed, that an old pump is just an old pump. That idea is wrong, and it's cost good families real money. And that's exactly why I made this. Against the filter, the Model 12 clears every line, and it's the gun you're most likely to actually own. The most famous cutoff year in the hobby. The widest gap between the cheap common gun and the valuable rare one. And a mark you can read in 10 seconds. It breaks the one rule everybody believes, that an old pump shotgun is just an old pump shotgun. The 28-gauge and the pigeon-grade Model 12 put that rule in the ground. Go read the gauge stamp on yours tonight. If it says 28, you sit down before you call anybody. So here's your checklist. 4 lines, and it's the only part worth memorizing. 1. Read the gauge stamp. The small bores, the 28s, and the 410s are where the money hides, on nearly every gun we covered. 2. Read the country of origin. Belgium beats Japanese on the Browning guns. Meriden beats the later era on the Parker. 3. Read the grade marking and the year. Pre-64 on the Winchester. The grade name on the doubles, the Wingmaster roll mark on the 870. 4. Before you sell anything old, put it in front of somebody who knows and pull the factory letter where you can get one. Do not clean it, do not sand the wood, do not fix it up for the show. Original is worth more than shiny every single time. Now here's the honest truth that undercuts this whole video, and it's truer than the video. The most valuable thing here isn't any gun on the list. It's the 10 minutes of looking you do before you let a family gun go. The gun you keep because you finally stopped and checked. That one's worth more than any price a buyer will ever hand you. If I could only keep 3 out of everything we covered, here's my honest 3. And notice it isn't the 3 most expensive. I'd keep a Pre-64 Model 12 because it's the everyman's hidden treasure and because it's the gun that taught half this country to shoot. I'd keep a Belgian Auto 5 Sweet 16 because Browning loved that design and because I'd actually carry it into a dove field, not just admire it. And I'd keep a field-grade double, an L.C. Smith or a Parker, not for the money, but for what it says about the men who built guns like that by hand in this country. Carol's father's double is in my safe right now. It'll be in my grandson's. Here's the line to carry into any store or any gun show. Check the stamp before you cash the check. Now I want to hear from you. And this one costs a little to answer honestly. What old shotgun did you sell or watch a relative sell before anybody knew what it was? And what's the stamp you wish you'd checked first? Put it in the comments. Because somebody scrolling by this weekend is about to clear out their late father's closet and take the first offer at a table. And your story might be the thing that stops them. And I already know some of you are hollering, where's the Fox Sterlingworth? Where's the Remington Model 31 in 20 gauge you think I shorted? Where's the LC Smith you'd have ranked higher? Tell me what you'd have put on instead. If reading a gun straight before you buy it or sell it is what you came here for, then subscribe. That's what I do here every week, the way nobody behind a counter has the time to. Next week, I'm taking apart the Winchester 1897 trench gun all by itself. How to spot a genuine one from a dressed-up fake, mark by mark, before you hand over a dime. After what I told you today, you want that one. Check your safe and be honest with yourself about what's in it. See you soon.